Yeah, I think the reason that it's so important to come together and to open it up with some quietness is so that we can be receptive to whatever it is that we're calling forth. It's not about me coming in and sitting down in this chair and expounding at all. It's really the beauty of us with our shared prayer. And what is that prayer that's common for all of us? Is to feel our connection with God, to feel that beautiful love with our Creator. And it's so holy, you know? It's so beautiful. And so, you know, I've been in, as many of you probably have as well, hundreds and thousands of gatherings since my late 20s. And they all fed me in a certain way, you know? Even the ones that I seem to judge against, they all fed me. They fed this awakening. And since I was young, I had a very deep call for something other than what the world had to offer. Because from a young age, I could tell, like many of you probably, that there was something a little fishy about all this. So to begin with, I'm going to play a song. I'm doing my own tech, so it's kind of an interesting... So I just will... Oh, no, you will. And I want you just to really sink into this song. It's a lullaby, right? It's a lullaby from the Spirit. And just to notice anywhere in yourself where there's any kind of contraction or weird feelings. And just let this song be our opening prayer and our open meditation for this joining today. So I'd like to invite the truth within all of our hearts to join together as if this is the most important, profound experience we'll ever have. That just by virtue of us joining together, where two or more are gathered, there is love. There is a love inside of us, and we call it forth now. To nurture and to give us perhaps some insight, some awareness of this deeper connection, this connection that has never been lost. What a beautiful moment we get to share together today with this as our intention, because with this intention, the miracles rise up. The ahas come back into the front of your mind instead of being pushed off into the back. And just with that intention, just with that little willingness, we pray that we can be lifted up into your comfort, into your divine comfort. And know that we are not alone, that we are not here struggling around trying to find you, but that we're found. So I just want to start today with this beautiful invitation of our own hearts joining as one in that unity of that purpose, to be able to join together in this way. And if your intention is awakening, if your intention is to feel this, experience this, and not just intellectualize it and not just spout concepts, then it's possible to have this experience now. And that's the beauty of coming together in this way, in this house, in this little village. So simple. But it's not small, It's huge. Because prayer is the medium of miracles. And if you have a sincere prayer, it will be answered. It is the law. But we have to let go of everything that stands in the way of what we think we need or what we think we want. That is the disease. That is the virus. Is we think we need this, we think we need that. And they can be wrapped up in really beautiful spiritual dressing. And that can be one of the biggest traps of all, is that comparisons. Who's further along? Am I getting it? It just goes on and on, I know, because I've lived it. And it was all very sincere, but at a certain point I had to see that sincerity was misaligned with the ego and really not helpful. Hi, Bonnie. So today we just come together in a very deep way, in a very profound way, of this prayer of, show me that I am loved. Show me that I am connected to you. We are worthy of the experience, not the concepts. The concepts are fine, the understanding is fine, but where we're going today is to deep into this experience. And so today, in meditation, I kept hearing to share about truth. Right? We all want the truth. And we live in a world that is filled with everything that's not that. In the Course in Miracles, Jesus says that there's nothing more tragic than the perception of form. And I remember I used to listen to a lot of Joel Goldsmith, and I loved him very much. And he would talk about the mesmerization of form. And everything here is to distract us away from this simplicity of who we are, what we are. It's here as a huge distraction. And as we awaken, as we are all in this room intent on that, higher, the world's going to just continually go more and more crazy. Because the world is the part of our unconscious mind that is coming to the surface. So in that way, it's the good news, because it's not really hidden so much anymore. It's pretty much insane. And it will never, ever, ever change. We have to stop thinking that the world will change. It's not going to change. It lets us down every single time. Because it was born out of this tiny mad idea that we're separated from our source. It was born out of fear. Now the Course teaches us that fear doesn't really exist. Well, that's all well and fine, and that is our awakening process, is to actually allow that fear to come into our awareness. Not to spiritualize it, and not to say, oh, that doesn't matter, it's just an illusion. That's not helpful. We want to absolutely allow the deepest, darkest, whatever, to come to the surface. And as we do that, we'll see that it happens in the world as well. It's like, wow, it's very intense. It seems like there's a lot happening. And this is how radical it's going to get, you guys, when you really, if you take on the Course in Miracles as your pathway, and it is a fast track, the Course in Miracles, because it is a complete handbook out of hell, so to speak. And so if we will allow that to fully take over our mind, the Holy Spirit says, if you give your mind over to me, I'll work with you, right? Because it will meet us where we're at. It can be gentle. It doesn't seem gentle to the thought system that's being let go of. And so the world will start to out-picture. It's all an outward picture of an inward condition. Okay, well, let's make it all good news, because if that stuff is coming up, and I know that for myself, I was always plagued with really bad nightmares, like nightmares that you can't even imagine. Like, I could never even imagine some of the stuff that was going on in my nighttime dreams. And I remember in a gathering with Gary Renard, and he said that he had those nightmares. So I talked to him after, and he said, well, I look at it like that the Spirit is working with my subconscious mind of the terror, the experience of actual terror of that belief in the separation. And it's a gentle way, right? It's like, oh, I wake up and then I pant my breath and I'm sweating, but okay, it was a dream. And so now, as we forgive, because that is the only antidote to this whole craziness, is how do we save the world? We wake up. You're not responsible for what's happening in the Ukraine. You're not responsible for the virus. You're responsible for accepting the atonement. And then you wake up. And you wake up like I would wake up in the middle of the night and see, oh my God, that was just a dream. That's very radical. People will fight and defend this world. And it's important. That it's important what's happening. It's important what's happening with the virus. It's important, whatever bizarreness is going on in the world. And see, this is where it gets very, very tricky and very tender with the ego, because the ego, it wants to get involved with these things. Because if it doesn't, it means it doesn't care. It means that you're not a loving person, right? And you think about a loving mother with a child. If they don't worry about their children, they're not a good mother. That's a common one. How crazy is that? What if you showed up in your presence of who you are with your children, and then the right answers would come? That's called compassion. Yes, we want to be compassionate with every part of our mind. So this fear that's arising in its billions of forms is just simply here to help us let it pass through. Because as we let it pass through, we start to see the unreality of it. Not through concepts, but literally through the alchemy of that forgiveness process. it becomes an experience. And on the flip side of that, with true forgiveness, there is nothing but compassion. It's not about not caring. It's about true caring. It's about how can I be used in whatever situations arise? How can I be used in the way that will serve the whole? Because I do not know. Suzanne doesn't know. That would be impossible. Jesus says it in the Course. You cannot know every situation, everything that has brought whatever it is to you in that moment. So there's this total reliance on this invisible power that is so relaxing, because it's not you trying to figure it out. When we're trying to figure things out, I know for me, I used to try to spiritually figure it out. Oh my God, that was just, and that was actually one of the most heavy parts, because I thought I could get it wrong. I believed I could get it wrong with God, and that somehow there would be a consequence. And I remember one time, because I was very devoted, I remember one time that I made a choice that I knew was wrong, just so I could see there would be no consequences. You know, because there are no consequences in love. Love is love. Love is there to help us through our sleeping state. And while perception lasts, there's healing to be done. So we want to be super patient with that. Like, okay, I'm doing it. And I know I hear a lot, and I heard a lot from myself. For years I heard it, you know, I should be further along than this. Why am I having to deal with this again? And you know, the turning point for me, and many of you have heard me say this, the turning point for me was when I realized that I was doing the great work of forgiveness, and that I should be more kind to my mind, so to speak, and allow whatever's arising to pass through. It's not wrong. It's just mistaken identity. There's nothing wrong with us. There never has been. But we believe in this tiny mad idea that is so terrifying at its root that we have to take it in small doses because we cannot handle it. And I know in medicine journeys when I've been in the medicine and the full experience of the ego is on me and it is too much. It can shear you off. So it's like the gentle way is a slowly evolving curriculum. It's not, as I heard Mooji say one time, it's not a cappuccino awakening. Okay, that's fine. I get that. But I also know that the miracle is now. It's now. This does not have to take time. I was going through something, and I had this narrative going on in my mind, and I didn't even realize it until I went, that's impossible. Oh, this is going to take a while. I could hear this voice in my head. Oh, this is going to take a while to get over. You're going to have to really process this. Now, I'm mind-trained enough that I was very surprised when I went, whoa, come on, that has to be a lie. And even my mighty companion that I was with said, yeah, you need to be, you need to. And I said, no. If it's true that this takes time for me to get over, then the Course is not true. And I could feel this rising up inside of myself, like, almost like, really? I can be over this, like right now? But it was a humbling experience. It was a powerful experience of truth rising up, and it was a humbling experience at the same time, and I fully gave myself over to this truth. No, I do not have to suffer through this. Because I had been spending time with it so that it could authentically pass through. But then the narrative kept going, oh yeah, it's going to take a little longer. And you know what? It disappeared. It was gone. Because the work that we do with forgiveness is not about throwing, this joyful persona on top of our wounds at all. It's really about really being so compassionate with ourselves that we can hold the space for ourselves and let this stuff pass through. But then when the wallowing starts, right? It's like, oh, I'll just, I'll stay in it a little while longer. The victim mentality comes up, but it didn't have a chance in that moment. And I knew I had already done the work with it. you see. I didn't just disregard it. I literally let the feelings of whatever it was that were there to be healed come through into this light. But then the narrative wanted to hang on, like, oh, it's going to take time. So I felt inspired today to just talk about this, the truth of this beautiful book, because all the answers are in here. And there's something in the mind that doesn't want to accept it. It doesn't want to accept that my brother's innocent. It doesn't want to accept that there's not a problem in the Ukraine. It doesn't want to accept that horrible things happen in this world, in this dream. And the reason that they do is because the belief is so terrifying, and it's an outward picture of that terror. How is terror going to show itself in form, in dreamscape? All sorts of horrendous ways. And so what is our part? Our part is simply to go and into our only part, which is not to be responsible for the air, but to be responsible for the acceptance of that correction. And that correction is every moment. It's when you're driving through town. It's when you're sitting in a room. It's you can see the attack thoughts. And so it felt very good today to talk about mind watching, because as you start to watch your mind, you're about halfway there, because you're starting to see how you are, how the separated self needs to protect itself, how it needs to defend itself, how it needs to set things up so it can feel safe. And it's exhausting. It's completely exhausting to try to figure this stuff out on your own. And we have a power inside of us that knows everything. And that's what we can relax into as we let go of thinking that we know anything at all. Anything at all. And it's very humbling. I would say it's very humiliating to the ego, because the ego likes to think that it knows stuff. It likes to even think that it knows spiritual stuff. It likes to compare and contrast paths and how somebody else is expressing and whatever somebody else is doing and how they're doing it. And you know what? That is the disease in the mind. We need to watch our minds. And Jesus says we're way too tolerant of mind wandering. And you know, I was in community for years, and like 3 years in, honestly, I read that and I thought, wow. And so I watched it for one day, and I thought, wow, I am so tolerant of mind wandering. And then I would try to, size it up and put it in a little box and put on a face and smile and act spiritual. And, I've talked often about being able to get to this place of neutrality where things don't really bother you, but underneath there's rage. And you don't know it because you're trying so hard to be spiritual, and it's okay. That is a stepping stone. I mean, it's helpful to have that as a desire, right? It's better than, the alternative. But all these rungs of the ladder that lead us home into this experience of peace and rest, all of these rungs, they're good for a little while, and then they start to dissolve. And it's like, why doesn't that work anymore? That used to work. Because we have to ever be expanding. If we're not always expanding, then we get into complacency and lethargy. It starts to happen because we start to compromise, or we start to feel so comfortable on one of the rungs of the ladder that we don't want to move off from it. Because that self-concept is kind of embedded in this thing that looks kind of like safety. It looks kind of like peace. But there's no real joy, right? And I'm not talking about joy like, you're jumping up and down all the time in ecstatic bliss. I'm talking about a peaceful joy. That even if you're on the floor going through something, you know that that's where you're supposed to be, because this joy is pushing all of that stuff right up into awareness so that it can actually be dissolved in the light. That's the most inspiring thing. And that's why forgiveness, and I'll tell you what, it was drudgery for me for years. Trying to forgive myself. trying to forgive others. It was drudgery. There was no, and then I was always afraid of when was I going to do something wrong again, or, when was I going to have to, whatever. It was just a mess. And then I realized that I was judging my own beliefs as being wrong. There was something wrong with me. So as we gently hand our mind over to the Spirit and we say, please, I need your help. I do not know the way to you. But there is a part of the mind that does remember. And it's called, in the Course in Miracles, it's called the Holy Spirit. But what is the Holy Spirit? The Holy Spirit is that divine part of our mind that is never left. But it's not for us to try to figure anything out. I think we all have to go through what we have to go through to get to that point of release where we really do understand in an intellectual manner that we really don't know. And it seems like everything will fall apart if we let go of the reins. It seems like everything will just take us over, right? But actually what starts to happen is there's an opening. It's like this divine opening. And then all of a sudden, the light starts coming in these cracks. And it starts opening our hearts to the truth. And at the base of all of that is peace, no matter what's happening. And do you know that right now, I just keep having this sense, and I've had it for the last year, that things are going to get really, really, really rocky in the seeming world. That world is part of a projection of this tiny man. The world is the projection of the tiny man idea. We can't tinker around with the world. We have got to go inside and see where our own attack is, where our own murder is, where our own attack thoughts are. I can escape this world by giving up my attack thoughts. And that's pretty profound. That's the biggest part we can play. And then we will be used in this seeming world to be a blessing, to inspire, to lift up, to be where we need to be, to serve the highest good of what? Of love and compassion. Of love and compassion. I saw something on Facebook the other day of Jimmy over, and he gave a little girl a teddy bear or something. And I just thought, how beautiful, how beautiful is that? Just, we can do that here in the village. We can do that with each other. It could just be, it's that extension of our heart that just wants to love. This whole world, everybody wants to love, right? It's love or a call for love. And it's always our call for love, If we think we're helping somebody else, we're really, it's like there are two voices. There's the good spiritual voice, and then there's the bad voice. There's the good spiritual voice, oh, you need to do your lesson. And then there's this one over here, I just want to watch TV, I want to go look at CNN. And then what I'm talking about is the third choice, which is neither one of those voices. We got to let go of the voices in our heads, the good ones and the bad ones. And then there's inner prompts that will come that you can feel, like a lightness around it, like, oh, we move towards this. You actually don't have any choice in this world other than forgiveness. No choice in this world. It seems like we have a lot of decisions to make, right? Well, there's no decision in this world that will ever bring you happiness. Jesus says it in the Course in Miracles. There is no decision. The only decision that will bring true happiness is forgiveness. There has to be a devotion to forgiveness to be happy. Now, if you're split and you're, I want a little bit of this and a little bit of that, that's what you'll have, and that's okay, until you get so tired of it that you finally go, okay, I want to give my full mind over to this so that I can actually experience true happiness. We're all old enough in this room. Time, whew. We're only here for another minute, really. And the Course takes us as far as the happy dream. And so the happy dream is when we forgive. That's all the happy dream is. It is an experience. It's a true experience of who we are, and it's beautiful, and it's innocent, and it's playful, and it's joyful. And it doesn't need to sit in meditation for 10 hours a day. It doesn't, it's like whatever is guided will be provided for you as you turn your mind over and say, I want the peace of God more than I want this world anymore. It's a giant loop. It's a giant loop. I watched a little video on the history of, I don't know if it was Russia or Ukraine, and it was like an hour long, and I slept through part of it, but what it was so bizarre. It was like from the year of, 300 AD, and then it went through every successive war that has happened, right? And it's almost like the last 40 years or whatever, that they've been basically peaceful, almost, I think, to give us the strength to allow us not to be in survival mode, so that we could see that there perhaps is another choice here. And now we know there's another choice, and now we can have the strength and the stability to make that choice completely, because bombs aren't falling on our heads. So I watched this and I thought, isn't that crazy? Like the world will never change. It is a giant loop. Now that loop is inside of our own mind. We keep looping in the mesmerization of this form world, of ourselves as avatar suits. Oh yeah, okay, this needs that, and that needs this, and I need this to be happy, and if only this goes this way, then I'll be happy. You know what? It will never, ever, ever, ever happen. It might happen for a minute. There will be some pseudo-happiness. Or there might be a spark of some sort that actually is pure, but then all the concepts come on top of it because you want to hang on. You want to hang on to that spark. It's like, no, we have to continually be in this let go. Let me let go and let God have me. So this is the thing that happens on the journey, the seeming journey, until you literally say, I give up. I just give up. And I don't know my way to you, but I know that you know. And so I want to yield into that light, love, compassion that's within my own heart. And I want myself to be purified. I want all of that attack to be purified. I want to see how insecure I am. I want to know all those parts of myself that I've pushed away out of awareness from childhood because it didn't go the way that I thought it should go. And we, in the retreats that I do, we talk a lot about patterns and how that patterning, as a child, you really truly have one or two core loops, and it just keeps playing out because we didn't know how to deal with it when we were children, and we didn't have enlightened parents, and so it became a thing of trying to protect ourselves. We don't want to protect ourselves. We want to be with mighty companions that we can share deeply with. And I know that most people in this room do that, to be able to share the hurt, the perceived hurts and pains that it doesn't matter if you've said it 1,000 times, to just keep doing the dharma, so to speak, of allowing this darkness to come up. Because it's not your personal darkness, it is the darkness of the ego. And as you start to mind watch, as you start to see how much attack you have in your own mind, then you can start to be accountable about the allowance of that to be forgiven. It's a wonderful, wonderful process. It's a wonderful, wonderful moment when you realize that that's all actually, it's the only choice of this world that makes any sense. There's only one choice to take us out of this, and that's forgiveness. That's it, one choice. Okay, so then it makes all your other decisions fairly easy. Like, does this help me to awaken, or does this put me further to sleep? And sometimes we'll say, I just want to sleep a little longer. But at least know that that's what you've chosen. No harm, no foul. It's just that's the fact, and then don't wonder why you're not ultimately happy. or consistent with peace of mind. And that consistency is something that the Course talks about quite a bit, is to become consistent in this letting go of the things that are not true. And that's what we want. It's like, if we're going to dwell here seemingly for a little while longer, let us dwell in peace. We don't have to understand what's going on. And in fact, the more you try to understand it, the further away you'll be taken. The only thing worthy to even try to grok is forgiveness and the power of that forgiveness, because you're not the healer, we're not the healer, but there's a divine light inside of us that is. And you know, at a certain point, the little avatar suit with all its opinions and all of its stuff, it turns around and it starts serving that light. It starts serving. It's more important even to the little avatar personality self to choose that instead of going down pathways that lead to death. All roadways of this world lead to death. Death of what? All roadways pursued in this world are just more fodder for that loop to continue. It will continue. And it will continue, and at the base of it is anxiety, fear, unrest. It's like a low-level grind. Right? I need to do this to do that. Now, last year I took a year and a half out, and I, along with Mighty Companions, produced this children's book. Now, I don't have children. I know very little about children, but this book came through. And I accepted that it was time to bring back the innocence, the color, the animation, the lightness of a children's book based on these principles, right? And so we will be given, as we let go more and more, we don't have to worry about what we'll be doing, because it'll just come in a beautiful way. It'll come in. It'll come in as you relax the mind away, and you truly, as it says, if you focus on the kingdom of heaven, everything else will be added unto you. Now, as you focus on the kingdom of heaven, you're going to walk directly into the light of who you are. And as you do that, you don't really care what you're doing anymore, but then all of a sudden, there's things that you're doing that are really, really beautiful. And they're not just for you. It seems like they're for the greater good of the mind, because we're all connected. And so, you know, this pathway is so abundant, but the work, of course, is to really drop deeply into what forgiveness is. And what is it that you're forgiving? You're forgiving the tiny mad idea. You're not really forgiving people who have betrayed you. You're not really forgiving anything that's happened to you in your life that was horrendous. You're forgiving the belief that you're this little avatar suit running around at effect of everything and everyone. Oh, she smiled at me the wrong way. Oh, she didn't. She, you know, whatever. It's endless, right? It's truly, truly endless. How much upset the mind, identified with the separated mind, can conjure up in a day, in an hour. It's crazy. And Jesus says insanity more, I think, than any other word in the entire book. We're insane. We've had a psychotic break. Okay, well now we're in the ICU, you know, and we're just like, you know, hook me up. I don't know how to do this, but we've been given this. And it certainly isn't the only path, but it, you know, it's the one that's worked for me. And I've been through a lot of different spiritual teachers and teachings, and this is the one that kept coming back. And this dissolves in the end too, because it's a trampoline, like David Hoffmeister says. It's like a trampoline, it's just to get you in the air. And you can't be grasping onto it for the rest of eternity. The book has to disappear, and then you become what the book is pointing to, which is love. And that can be worked through in any way. I had somebody in a conversation not long ago talking about certain ways that we used to work with forgiveness, or being metaphysically correct, right? And I said, I cannot think like that anymore. If I'm to share something with somebody, hopefully they're not going to be my words, they're going to be the words from the Spirit, and they'll be whatever they are. They could be the most simplistic thing or the deepest. I don't get to choose. I don't even want to choose anymore. Like with the children's book, oh my gosh, taking all this beautiful awareness and wanting to just give it into a children's book, and we've just been joining in prayer and taking out all kinds of stuff and keeping it very, very, very beautiful and simple, because it actually is, right? So I love the plan that I didn't make, and there is something laid out in front of us that is there for us to relax into, and it doesn't have to be difficult. It is usually experienced as we let go of the scissors. But there is a beauty in all of us that is so sparkly and bright. And as we start to see it in each other, and we stop, really, really stop the madness in the mind about what you think about your brothers, like you just see it, because if you think that about them, it's here, the sword is at your throat. Because we are united in this truth. Personalities, no. Personalities will never join. We got to go beyond those personalities. We all have them. But it's not who we are. It's just what's expressing seemingly now. And what I have noticed is starting to happen is in this infinity sign kind of symbol that keeps coming in the center is where we meet. It's not about denial of this world at all. It's actually for me, because I denied this world for many, many years, and I was not happy. But I thought I was on a spiritual quest, that was what was required. And the more awake I became, the more in love I became with the flowers and the trees and each other. And it was like, whoa, I have completely negated all of this because I thought it was all a distraction. I thought it was going to keep me here. And I had to let go. And then in the center of this infinity sign is where it meets, and that's where duality dissolves, and you just are. And it's just okay, And then you can share that. Then you can really share that warm blanket of light. And we all get to lay down in it together, because we all are together. We can never not be together. But while we believe we can be, it's rough going. It's really, really rough. And there's a sadness to it, right? There's like a deep sadness to it. And I think at the core of all of it, the division. Oh my gosh, the division now is so obvious. The split in this world is so obvious. People are fighting again. You can't even say something without, somebody jumping on you. If you're sharing your opinion about something, then they have their opinion. And it's just madness. It's total madness. There's no true communication. And when I first met David Hoffmeister and I went into an expression session, for 5 days I would go into these expression sessions. I had never seen anything like it. People were telling what they were feeling, for real. And I was like judging the hell out of all of them. I was like, ooh, she's really messed up. Oh man, he's really got some problems. And I'm over here feeling all spiritual. And then I realized on the 5th day, oh my gosh, none of it matters. That's what's trying to come through, is none of it matters. Like they're expressing what doesn't matter so that we can feel this vibration of God, but all this stuff sits on top of it. So we can't feel it. We can't feel it because we have so many beliefs laying right on top of it. And that's energetic. It's like our attack thoughts are energetic. And that energy is what we live in when we're in that. And what we do is that we allow it into our awareness and we let it pass through and we don't deny it. And then we get down to the vibration of who we are. We are connected. We've never left our source. Oh my God, I made it all up. For real. And then you enter into the happy dream, which is just it's happy.
light, it's joyful, it's peaceful, it's quiet. It doesn't worry about its healing. It welcomes it. I welcome my healing. Anything that happens, anything that triggers me, I'm like, okay, great, here it goes. And I just sit down with it because I don't hold myself apart from that which I am supposed to be about, which is healing. So if something hits me out of nowhere, I go into my cave. And I go to my closet and I pray. I'm like, okay. But there's not this like, oh God, you're all messed up again. It's like, no, this wants to come through so that I can continue in this vibration with my Creator. I can feel it. I can feel it. And when something gets in the way, guess what? It's not in the way. It has to pass through. And I do not deny it. And I do not push it away. And I do not distract away from it. I sit, and I will sit as long as I need to, and then I can feel it lift off. And then if the narrative wants to stay like it did not so long ago, it's like, no, that's not it. Because we believe what we believe, these beliefs have to be pierced. I think Calico used to always write in her post, believe, and she'd emphasize the lie inside of the word, right? The letters L-I-E. I've always thought that was so great. Our beliefs, our values are what keep us Velcro to a misidentification of who we are. We are not fear. Jesus says that fear does not exist except for in our own perception. So as we let go and we forgive, we start to face those deep insecurities and fear so that we can literally, the reason we want to face them is because we want to see that they're not real. And the deeper we go into the prayer of forgiveness, it starts to dissipate and dissolve. So I feel like the most inspiring, most beautiful, most rewarding experience of my life is forgiveness. That's it. Because I've done everything else, and I'm sure we all have, right? We've all tried. And the ego is so hell-bent on convincing you that there will be a sacrifice if you follow this path out all the way, that you will lose out on what you find valuable. And what starts to happen is there's replacements that come in that are so much more meaningful. And that's how you get convinced that you're not here alone. But it's not natural at all to effort. It's not natural to effort. Now, I have to say, I efforted the hell out of my spiritual journey until I gave up. But that was all part of it too, you know what I mean? It's like how we got here in the branching of the road, the Course talks about, Jesus talks about, it no longer matters how you got here. And that's a humbling thing too, because you have to let go of everything you think you know, even spiritually speaking, and just be open to the miracle that wants to come right on through, so that you can live a life of peace and happiness and joy and compassion for a world that's going crazy. And that craziness is, I think, it's gonna get more crazy. The more light, the more that we get stabilized together in this truth, where we're not at effect. Effect of a war, forget about that. How about the effect of somebody saying something to you that you don't like? It's a war. We have to deal with the war in our own mind. And it's, it's so easy to go on to these big subjects, like as if that's the problem. It's like, okay, well, that's never worked. That's never ever worked. And it's almost like, how many times do we have to have war play out in the world until we get that it's not about tinkering with the projection of the tiny mad idea that is horrific. There's no doubt about that. But it's a horror that doesn't actually exist. And Jesus, when, at a certain point I had to believe what he was saying. I had to try it on, and he said that this world is no more important than this world is a hallucination. No more important than the dream you had last night. Now, wouldn't that be wonderful to believe, like not believe, but wouldn't it be wonderful to know that that's the truth? Like, wow. You mean nothing of this world is important? And you can hear, the mind rise up and say, yeah, but what about my children? What about this? What about that? Well, if this is your path, and we want to be convinced through love, we want to be convinced that what he's pointing us to is the truth. What if it were really true that this is just a nightmare of our own making? What if that is absolutely the truth? That you just hallucinated something horrendous happening to you. Okay. All right, what do you do with that? That's pretty heavy, right? And that's why he gently takes us in. Like, we have to look at the utter terror, the ring of fear that prohibits us from going past it into the divinity that we are. It's like a force field. It's a force field. Rape, abuse, all of these things. It's a force field to keep us believing in this tiny mad idea that I've separated from true love. That's what it is. And this is a radical book. And it's a radical message. And until we start taking those tiny steps, just with our own world, we will never know. Because we keep thinking that it's real. So you just take the tiny steps of, say today, when you leave here, you can start to see where there's any kind of attack, any kind of judgment, any kind of condemnation. And just work with that and let it be released. And you will see that your mind starts to feel more peaceful, that you start to be used in ways that are so beneficial. Jesus didn't fight against sin. We're not here to fight against the error. We're here to see that it is wholly unreal. And those sentinels for darkness will come in. You don't care. How can you not care about this? That doesn't mean that you don't have this experience of divine compassion. That's not at all what I'm saying. I think, I think it's a trust and a power that can dissolve all fear. That's all. That's everything. We don't want to see our brothers and sisters suffering. Of course not. But let me deal with my own suffering. And then it's like when you're on an airplane and they say, put the mask on yourself first and then deal with the child next to you. Like, we need to really breathe in that oxygen of forgiveness so that we can be convinced that what he's pointing to is that we're divine, that we've never left our source, that we can wake up and go, oh my God. It's like that movie, The Cafe. I don't know if everybody's seen it. I haven't seen it in years, but they play out some murder scene in the end, and then all of a sudden everybody wakes up. And they're like, oh yeah. And it's like, that's how it is. Now, that's not what it seems like, because the mesmerization of this form world is so real. Everything seems so real. But we're not our senses. We've got to go to that divine sense that shows us the truth. And that takes practice. It does take practice. But it's moment to moment to moment. Don't think of it as a linear. Just think of it today. Like, do I want to be more compassionate and loving and not at war in my own little bubble here in Ahihiti or wherever you are, the song, you had a dream, you misunderstood, you thought we were separate. Just to spend a day contemplating that this is, we never really say it's just an illusion because it's not helpful, because we don't believe it's just an illusion. So we want to be very tender about that. It's not compassionate. There's nothing about that feels good. When somebody's suffering, you go, oh yeah, it's not real. I hear people say this to me all the time as they're sharing their hurt. I know it's not real. I'm like, don't say that. That's not helpful. We need to undo it for real, not throw some platitudes from a book on top of it. It doesn't work. So it does feel like, I've been noticing, and I can hear it in my own mind, that people are wanting to get together more, like live together, work together, because that support to go through the eye of the needle of this one can be very daunting, but it's nice to have witnesses around you that are reflecting the truth. I remember, 15 years ago, I couldn't believe that I could just have a world that consisted of reflections that always reflected back to me the truth of who I am. And now that's really all that there is, And it was just by practicing forgiveness very, as best as I knew how. And I know that now that I look back, I practiced it in many ways that wasn't really straight up, but it was the best I could do at the time. And then I realized, as you go deeper into this, you realize what it's really saying. It's like, oh, okay, I'm only ever forgiving a belief. I'm not really forgiving a situation. I'm forgiving myself for believing in the madness that I could be separated from true love. Yeah, so I feel like we're at a very interesting time, actually. With everything that's heating up, new threats of nuclear war. We've heard that for a long time. I remember when we were kids, we used to have to hide under the desks like that was going to do anything. But it is the downfall of a thought system. All the systems of this world are dissolving. They're all dissolving. They're all going down now. And we're not going back to normal. And normal was just really tinkering around with the screen. Oh, I'll become a successful singer, or I'll become this, or I'll become that, I'll do whatever. And then I'll be happy, I'll have this relationship, that, It was like we really had a run with it, you know what I mean? We really did. We all got to try those things out. And now we get to go, okay, I hit my expiration date with this world, and I knew it. I knew I came into this seeming reality this time to completely go all the way. And you can feel it, like, oh, nothing works anymore. Nothing ever fulfills me. That's the expiration date. And then we turn around and we start serving the light the best we can. We just start serving that light, and then things get happier and happier and bigger and more expansive in ways that you would never ever have dreamed of. Like it just makes our efforts and what we were trying to achieve look so small compared to actually not having to do anything at all, being happy. Sitting around looking at the bougainvilleas, just, that's good, Go to the lake. It doesn't have to be some huge thing. I would like to close it with just the, and I don't know if this is true for most of you, but it certainly was for me, that I had that good voice, bad voice. I had the voice that thought it was onto something and knew something and in a good way, and then I saw the one that tried to always be attacking it. But we want to go to the third. We want to go to the voice that is above the battlefield of our own thoughts. We want to go as blank as possible, and that's why forgiveness is so beautiful, because forgiveness, you stop believing in your thoughts. Not that they don't come. I can have quite a circus going on in my head, but it's over there. It's over there. And I'll notice a clown come up and try to scare me, and I'll go, you know. And so it's not about stopping your thoughts, it's just literally not taking them seriously. And while you take them seriously, then allow whatever feeling that they seem to have connected to them, sit with that feeling and let it come up. Because if it's not harmony, it's not true. If it's not harmony, it's not true. And so what are we here to do? We're here to release that which is no longer serving us, that which no longer serves the light of who we are. We're here to let it go. And it can be as simple as sitting there and acknowledging it. And saying, okay, you can pass by now. I feel you, I see you, and to let you go. So, it's really an inspiring time. But you know, I went on I used to bring big spiritual teachers of our day to do events in Utah. And Greg Braden was one of them. And I remember, I never forgot what he said. He said, as we enter into this fifth world, the indigenous ones would say, if you are connected to spirit, you will go through it in love. And if you've lost that connection, you will go through it in intense fear. So I think our prayer is to go through it in love and to let go of everything within us that is not that. Because it's all an inside job. Nothing's happening to you. It's happening through you. And let's grok that. Let's really take that to heart. And allow the fruits of that truth to be harvested, because we're worth it. We're worthy to be happy. We're worthy of miracles. So thank you for the invite, Rita. Thank you for pulling me out. It's been a while. Yeah, it's been a while. And I just felt so blessed to just walk in this room, you know, like just to be here and talk about what feels so amazingly beautiful to me, which is forgiveness. It's the only choice, and everything that supports that is a worthy choice. Everything else leads you off into Never Never Land. It's okay. We've all wandered down those alleys, and we'll probably wander down a few more, but don't be surprised at the end of the alley that you're like crying, going, this didn't work out. The thing about this path is that it leads to joy, it leads to expansion, it leads to true happiness that does not have an object. You know, I wrote, it was such a collaboration. I said to somebody, you know, this book was not produced by one person. I'm not an author. It was like given by so many people. And it was this true collaboration of the spirit, right? And it was just this beautiful experience that I could never have imagined. Why would I ever write a child? Why? I don't even have anything. I never wanted kids. I never, you know, it was not my thing in this lifetime. So we will be given beautiful, beautiful journeys of dreamscape, but they will be liked and they'll be happy. So yeah, so I can just share. I'm going to be we're renting a place that it felt like it's time to work with people that feel a really deep desire instead of in a big retreat setting, which is what I'm more used to, into smaller. Just to come in for a period of time where you can literally let go of everything and have enough time to actually rewire the thought system. Because that's all this book does. That's why there's 365 lessons, because we have to rewire the thought system from a horizontal time linear to this moment, to letting go of future and past. That could be a whole other subject. The future and the past is linear time is the root of all evil, really. Thinking that it'll just get better. It'll get better if I just do this, or if I'm just good enough. It's like, oh. So thank you.